Sandy, you can just add Micah to the roll when she comes. Yeah. She's here. We're gonna get started. All right, good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We had a little bit of a extended forest preserve meeting, but thank you all for your patience. I would like to call the Will County Board Executive Committee meeting to order at, let's say 10:17. Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Radner, would you mind leading us this morning?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, please? Oh, this is not set up. Okay. Perfect, thank you. All right.
Richmond. Butler. Dean Schlappman. Freeman.
Here.
Oh. Hickey.
Here.
Logan. Newquist. Ortiz. Pretzel. Trinier. And Williams. Van Dyne.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Our approval of minutes will not be available till next month. So moving on, request for state's attorney's opinion. Ms. Tatro, no opinion? Oh, request for state's attorney's opinion. Okay, no request. Thank you. Okay, old business. Approval of the dissolution of the ad hoc Old Courthouse Committee and the ad hoc Access Will County Committee. The reason why this is on here, of course, the courthouse has been demolished for some time now. And also with the Will County Board approving the Access Will County, I felt like there was not really a need for the ad hoc committees at this time. So I also noticed that when we pull up our committees on the website, there's a ton of them that have not been dissolved. And I would like to try to start with these two and then go through the other ones and try to do some cleanup on our website so we can navigate that a little bit easier. So I would like to put this on the table and open it up for discussion.
We need a motion.
I do need, I need a motion.
Motion Freeman.
Second Hickey.
Motion and second. I'll open it up for discussion. Dean Schlappman. Yep. I just had you.
Okay,
All right.
so I understand that, the courthouse is gone and, we're moving in a direction with Will County Access. But I think both of those topics are still going to be important. I mean, obviously what's going to go on at the courthouse property is going to continue to be in discussion as far as everything else going on with Will County Access. So are those topics then are they going to become part of executive session to discuss, or how are we going to keep making sure that, we're kind of keeping our thumb on it?
Yeah, the topics don't get lost. So
Right.
I would think the old courthouse could probably go back to capital improvements.
Okay,
And then Access Will County could probably go to transportation if those discussions need to take place. Mr. Butler, you're already on. Great.
Yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, I don't have any problem with that recommendation, although the purpose of an ad hoc committee is to come up with a recommendation for the county board. And that's its sole purpose. And once that's done, that recommendation should be handed over to the board, and that would dissolve that committee. There was a recommendation, and I would say that the committee should stand until the full county board hears it, and then it will be dissolved.
I believe according to our rules, the ad hoc committees have to be dissolved at executive committee.
What I'm saying is the sole purpose of creating an ad hoc committee is to come up with a recommendation for the board. This was for public transportation as far as Will Ride was concerned. That recommendation has been made. That recommendation should be presented to the board, and then this committee could dissolve that committee afterwards. Out of respect for the committee and the chairman who spent a year coming up with this, I just feel like due process should unfold and it should happen naturally the way it's supposed to. The recommendation was made and the committee's over, but to dissolve the committee without hearing the recommendation seems like, well, it seems like a waste of everybody's time that was on that committee.
All right, thank you, Dan.
I think he finally, we made it our point that it was just before the dissolution of the Will County Access Committee. I think, and it was Chair Butler of the ad hoc committee would like for the recommendation that was put forward to be heard by the full board before the dissolution of that committee. Not that he disagrees that we're done. The recommendation has been made, but it was never brought forward. And I believe, and that's what he is asking for. That I just wanted to clarify.
I don't see a reason why you cannot bring, as past chair, to bring that, your findings to the Capital Improvements Committee to give that recommendation. No, it's just fine.
So I guess what I'm just confused about is if we're going to create an ad hoc committee with the sole purpose of coming up a recommendation, why would we dissolve it when the recommendation has been made? All it has to do is be presented, and then you could dissolve the committee. That is the recommendation of the accumulation of work for this committee over the last year. Otherwise, the committee was pointless. There's only has to be a recommendation and it's done, and it's been done for several months. So I'm just saying, why isn't it presented to the county board where it was meant to be? And then you can dissolve it.
Point taken. I'm going to go in order here. 13, Member Hickey.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the work that the ad hoc committee has done. I really do. I think that I understand that you're very invested and I appreciate that. I have a personal connection to all of this, so I really do appreciate the work that's been done. I'm just wondering, are we going to quibble about when? I think that what we're saying is it can be presented, if I'm understanding correctly, it still can be presented. We can dissolve the committee here and move forward and not have this hanging over our head for another month.
Thank you. Micah Freeman.
Thank you. I would agree with Kelly. She kind of said what I was going to say. Capital improvement could take it up, and I always thought it needed to be there anyway, and bring it forward, and it would stop us from having an ad hoc committee that will not be meeting and get it off of the agendas. I agree with Kelly.
Thank you. Number 2 is, number 2 is the chair. Sorry. Why are we back to, did I miss you, Sherry? No,
I'm
okay,
on.
Mike is on. I just turned you off. I am sorry. Turn it back on. Thank you. Okay, Miss Williams.
I think that I do appreciate what Board Member Butler was saying. On the old courthouse committee, we actually did ask for more input for the naming of the site. So that actually hadn't been done. So I guess that was my concern, and I think I talked to you about it as well, that we don't just let it go by the wayside, but that actually does need to be done. So to his point, that was one of the things that still remained for the old courthouse ad hoc committee. So I don't think it matters when we dissolve it. the fact is, it's just the point that we are going to dissolve it is, I think that's the whole point of it is these committees will get dissolved. If there's unfinished business, we need to make sure that the unfinished business gets finished.
Mr. Butler?
So I'm not sure we're on, talking about all, if we're just grouping all this together or if we're talking about them separately. Capital improvement is probably talking about the courthouse. You were talking about referring Access Will County to transportation. And, you know, I don't want to confuse anything. I just, you know, the whole idea of the way these meetings are set up and why we follow Robert's rules is so that we can have productive, orderly meetings. And so the idea of an ad hoc committee is that it is got one purpose. It's created for a specific purpose. And it doesn't end until that purpose is fulfilled, which is a recommendation to the county board. So I don't understand why we wouldn't offer the recommendation to the county board and then it's over. That's the way it should work. It shouldn't go into another subcommittee and then go to the county board. It should be presented to the county board as it was created to do. Are we going to be in the business of creating ad hoc committees and totally disregarding them? And then wasting the taxpayers' dollars of people spending a year with 5 people and different staff and stuff coming here, and then we don't even hear the recommendation for the committee? It just goes against the whole structure, the way meetings are set up. That's all. No one's asking for anything to be held over anybody's head. It's one presentation at the county board for the recommendation of the committee, and then it's over. And the county board could say yes or no.
Okay, thank you. Freeman?
Yeah, I'm just curious, is it okay if we ask for the legalities of this? Regarding the old courthouse?
The legalities,
Is
meaning,
it legal to end an ad hoc before its resolution has been brought forward?
I would like to refer to Ms. Tatro, if you don't mind. If you can come up to the microphone and answer Ms. Freeman's question.
I have a question regarding the legalities about ending an ad hoc without a resolution being brought forward. Is that,
It's entirely up to the public body to dissolve an ad hoc committee or not. So they have adopted rules. Under Robert's rules, an ad hoc committee automatically dissolves when the subject matter they've been assigned to address has been fully addressed. However, the county board has chosen to adopt rules overriding Robert's rules, which indicate that the ad hoc committee can be dissolved when the executive committee votes to do so.
so Mr. Butler is correct that it would dissolve once a resolution has been brought forward. However,
It would not
on-
automatically
Based on
dissolve
Robert's
because of your rules.
but our rules
Override Robert's
override
rules.
Robert's rules.
Correct.
Okay, so it would be okay. We wouldn't
It would be okay.
do it
Yes.
somewhere else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Mr. Richmond?
So what I'm hearing said, Dan, just for clarification, is you want the committees to be able to present to the full board, not be reassigned to a committee that it may not ever get out of the committee to get to the full board.
That's correct. The full board agreed to have this committee, and that should be referred back to the board with its recommendation. It's simple. I don't understand why we would be afraid of that or that we would object to that. We put a group of people on a task for over a year to accomplish a goal. It had been accomplished, and now we're going to disregard it and not even consider it.
So
And I just feel that, that's not the nature of an ad hoc committee. We decided that we were going to put a committee on it to investigate this topic, and that they would come with a recommendation and they can make a decision, yes or no. It just, otherwise, I mean, it sets a bad precedent for any ad hoc committees in the future, that they would just be completely disregarded. I don't know. I didn't ask to be on the committee, but I took it seriously and I worked on it and I spent a lot of time on it. And I guess it just, I feel like my time was completely disregarded and wasted without having that recommendation come forward. That's all. I don't care about the that ad hoc committee lasting one more day, but I would just like that the fruit of that labor be presented.
So if it was to be presented to the full county board next month, we could dissolve these and there'd be no
I would care. Yeah.
additional conversation needed. So just for clarification.
And I think every recommendation does come out of a committee to the full board. I don't think you can't, individuals or ad hocs can make. I guess what I'm saying is every recommendation has to come under a certain committee to the full board. It can't just be an individual recommendation. So it would still come through the full board under capital and transportation. I don't know when your decision was made on this ad hoc committee, when your recommendation was done. I just felt like the projects are over and it's time to move on. I don't know what the holdup was not to bring it to the full board.
So the recommendation was done several months ago. We hashed it out in our last meeting. I believe Kelly was there in the audience and she had made some suggestions and we took some of her language suggestions and added it and everybody felt comfortable with it, and so, I mean, it's been done. So, I guess, I don't see how you move forward from this when you create a committee for one purpose, the purpose is fulfilled, and then you don't allow it to open in front of the committee, the county board. Like, how does that happen?
I guess my question is, if it's been complete for some months, why has the recommendation not been brought forward?
I'm not in leadership.
Okay.
I don't understand why that happens, but I fulfilled my function and my committee fulfilled their function. All I'm saying is before it's dissolved, it should be presented to the board. And then after that's done, it naturally dissolves. And I don't believe, that because we can dissolve committees or create committees on our rules overrides the simple fact that an ad hoc committee in its very nature only is created for one purpose. And once that purpose is fulfilled, it is ended. That is the very nature of an ad hoc committee. It has nothing to do with, other committees that have many things they go over. This is one purpose. Once it's fulfilled, it's done.
Understood. We know your stance on that. Thank you. I'll go to Destiny Ortiz.
Hi, thank you, Chair Van Dyne. I am just curious if it is an option to possibly postpone this motion to the next executive committee and work towards bringing that resolution forward so that we can just have everybody, like Dan's saying, doesn't want to feel like their time was wasted with staff and the other committee members and people who were in the general public giving suggestions. If we could just maybe postpone this, get it on the agenda to go before the full board, and then we can dissolve the committee at our next executive committee. If that's an option, then maybe we should explore that.
I think that is an option, but since there's a motion on the table, this executive committee can make that decision now. If everyone's done with the discussion. Okay. Oh, yeah.
So I was
Logan.
on the courthouse committee. And our task was to decide what to do with that, to name it and to figure out what was going to be put there. I don't think that that's complete. And according to our rules, every ad hoc committee shall meet as often as necessary to accomplish the specific purpose for which it was created. The executive committee shall dissolve the ad hoc committee after its purpose is accomplished. Our purpose isn't accomplished yet. At least for the courthouse. I can't talk about access, Will, but the courthouse, we are not done yet. So I'm just going to put that out there. So if we're going to vote to dissolve it, I'm going to be an absolute no because it's not done yet.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? All right. Sounds like we need a roll call. Yeah, the motion was to approve the dissolvement of the ad hoc Old Courthouse Committee and the ad hoc Access Will County Committee. Sure. Well, that's not how the motion was made. Okay, would you like to make that motion?
I would make a motion at this point to separate the vote to, I've got to pull, my computer likes to turn off. Hold on, let me pull it up again. I would make a motion to separate the approval of dissolution of the ad hoc Old Courthouse Committee to be one vote and to have a second vote on the ad hoc Access Will County Committee dissolution.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on separation?
I do.
Dan?
You know, we're we're talking about the exact same thing. We're talking about ad hoc committees and, we had this big push to condense all of our stuff so that we would just be able to pass things in blocks. And we want to separate this. But why is that? Are we trying to split the vote? I mean, shouldn't an ad hoc committee fulfill its purpose? Shouldn't we agree that an ad hoc committee is designed for a purpose and that purpose should play out? Now, what is the difference between the courthouse and Access Will County as far as it being an ad hoc committee? I don't understand any reason why we would have to separate the two.
Yeah, and before we move on, may I suggest if you want to just leave your microphone on until we get in some trouble here, it might work a little smoother on my end. Mike Freeman.
So we voted last month on the Accessville County and it is now been approved and moved on. So its job as the ad hoc committee, in my opinion, is done because it's now moved on. We voted on something. And if the vote for the old courthouse would be separate because you say that there's still work to be done. That's why I would like to separate them because one has been voted on, the resolution brought forward and gone, and the other one is still, you say, active. So
So-
that is why I separated them. It's not to try to split the vote or anything like that. It's to make them two separate things because they are two separate committees. So that's it. Thank you.
So the Access Will County, there is no plan. There's an agreement with a vague outline. There's not an exact plan of what's going to do. And I've heard in the past that it might take 10 years to figure out what that plan is. So a recommendation from the committee on Access Will County is still relevant. I'd like anyone to tell me what that plan is. That 193-page study was not a plan. It was a study of all the counties who had transportation and what they did. And guess what? None of them had the same demographics as Will County. Okay? They had some that were close with maybe a fraction of the population as far as land densities and populations, but none of them were like Will County. So that was not a plan. It was a study. Okay? So I'm sorry, it's very relevant. And just because they passed that language last month in there doesn't mean that the recommendation has no value. What is the problem with hearing it? That's what I'd like to know. What is the problem with hearing knowledge and the summary, the accumulation of a committee's hard work?
Oh, that's okay. Either way. All right. We've had the healthy discussion. The motion is to separate, and there is a second. Can we have a roll call?
I'm sorry, who was the?
Micah Freeman was the motion
And you seconded.
and Kelly Hickey seconded to separate the two ad hoc committees for a vote. Roll call?
Richmond? Butler?
Oh, no.
Dean Schleppman? No. Freeman?
Yes.
Hickey? Yes. Logan?
No.
Newquist? Oh, I'm sorry. Ortiz? No. Pretzel?
No.
Williams? No. And Van Dyne?
No.
The nays have it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 to 2.
Okay, motion fails. So going back to the original motion to dissolve both committees at the same time. Roll call?
Richmond? Butler? Dean Schlattman? Freeman?
Yes.
Hickey?
Yes.
Logan? Ortiz? No. Pretzel?
No.
Williams?
No.
Van Dyne?
Yes.
Okay, nays have it, 7 to 3.
The count was 7-3 in the negative, so the motion fails. Okay. Moving on to number 2, amending the county board rules regarding consent agenda. The purpose of this, when the rules were passed, we took every committee that had a unanimous decision and we took every bit of it and put it up at the very top. I think that is kind of somewhat confusing to the members. Amending our county board rules to keep every topic in its own committee would be more clear for the members. So for example, if transportation was, all items were 7-0 and somebody wanted to pull out just an item from transportation, we could do six of the votes and then the other one could be discussed or whatnot. So this is a suggested cleanup. Anybody have anything to say about that? Any discussion, Mr. Richmond?
Okay, let me just jump in, and this is something we discussed, and I think it's going to be a lot cleaner for staff as well as for board members, as well as the public to understand what's going on. So I'm 100% behind this.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Mrs. Hickey.
Thank you, Chair. I respect what's being said here, and I just think that it's undercutting a little bit the idea of a consent agenda. Anything can be removed if someone is concerned about it. I looked back to see how many things would have been bundled together had they been referred to a consent agenda. And it didn't look like it would save us a lot of time if we pull them out and do separate consent agendas for each executive, for each committee. So that's my input, and I'm happy to hear otherwise, but thank you.
Let's have our chief of staff jump in here and maybe add some context.
Yeah, I think we all generally acknowledge that it does dilute the effectiveness of the overall consent agenda somewhat. However, you kind of balance that against the risk of losing track of an item that's pulled out from a consent agenda way up here, and then you have to move it down into the committee somewhere and try to track that during the course of a meeting, which there is a lot of debate that goes on during the course of that meeting. So I think that's what we're trying to do. We recognize it dilutes the overall effectiveness of the consent agenda somewhat, but there are certain committees that have items that are routinely approved by unanimous vote. I think we were at Public Works the other day, and they had 6 or 7 items that were all unanimously approved. Now, if they were up and commingled with all of the other items in there, we'd have to move 2 or 3 or 4 items down into the Public Works and try to track that as it goes through the process. I think it would be confusing for the county board members. I think it would be confusing for staff, but I think even more importantly, it would be confusing for the public as well. So I think we just want to be able to better track the items that are removed from consent agendas as we move through the course of the committee.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I like the consent agenda. I think that if people are concerned about something, they can do their prep work and read up on it. And I feel it will save us a lot of time and make a much more organized meeting.
So were you in favor of this here? Okay. Any other discussion? Let's offer a clean roll.
Richmond?
Yes.
Butler? Dean Schlattman?
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Hickey,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
Ortiz. Yes. Pretzel,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Van Dyne.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Um, motion carries. Yeah, go ahead.
It moves forward.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, at the next county board meeting where this still needs to be approved, we're going to go under the original rule. So we'll have just one consent agenda above new business. I don't know how big it will be. We'll determine that later in the course of the day or tomorrow. But we'll operate under the original amendment for the county board rules. And then if it's approved by the full county board, we'll shift to the modified consent agenda at the next meeting. So.
Okay. Thank you. And at some point, maybe we can revert back to the entire consent agenda if that's possible. All right. Number 3 under old business, discussion of pay raises for countywide elected officials and county board members. Yeah, we do have a little bit of information that was this was presented possibly a year and a half ago. I know it's been a concern for a lot of the board members. It's the pay for the countywides and the county board members have been stagnant for probably close to 2 decades. I feel last year when this discussion was brought forward, we were close as a bipartisanship to try to come up with some type of an agreement. So I wanted this just to open this up for discussion. Get your thoughts at the executive committee and then possibly bring this to finance next month. So that's the reason why this is on the agenda. I personally feel that our county-wides and our county board members are underpaid and without getting a raise for over close to 2 decades it's time to try to re-up. So I wanted to kind of have you guys take a look at some of this stuff. And like I said, open it up for discussion. This is, and I believe this is something that may have seen before. I remember seeing another attachment.
That's the full. You've got here, that's this one here, that's CTI.
Okay. I know you're probably seeing this for the first time in quite some time, so does anyone have, without being able to study the numbers, does anyone have a comment about the possibility of raises for the elected officials? Frankie?
I'm on.
Okay, go ahead.
So I know as an elected official, this is kind of the pay increases for other elected officials is like the third rail that nobody wants to touch. However, and this might surprise some of you, I believe it's our job and responsibility to manage these salaries. And unfortunately, when you kick the can down the road or avoid it altogether for 2 decades, to have the impact that you need to have to get these people who do an honest job, many of them full time, to get them to where they need to be to have a fair wage. Now you have to raise it $10,000, 10%, whatever it is, as opposed to if you just put a policy in place where every 2 years they get a 1% raise or something along those lines. It wouldn't hurt as bad. It's not something we can continue to avoid. I heard another board member last time we discussed this say, if not now, when? It is just a matter of time before we're going to have to true these salaries up. And I will be supporting some sort of a salary increase for our countywide officials because I think it's important. Again, it's our responsibility. I take the political parties out of it because just because there's a Republican in the seat today, could be a Democrat in 2 years or vice versa. So I think it's important that we look at it. I hope everyone's open-minded to it. I also don't love to go back to my constituents and tell them I voted for a pay increase for an elected person, but it is our responsibility.
And one thing that I forgot to mention, moving forward is I don't believe any elected official can actually raise their own pay. So these possible raises would come to the next person that would sit in these seats. So you're just a little tidbit there. And I lost track, so I'll just head around the room here. So Sherry Williams.
Thank you. I do think that, like I say, nobody likes to go back and tell the constituents we're giving ourselves a raise, so to speak. But it's also unrealistic to think that people are going to work without getting an increase in salary. So I would be in favor of increasing the salaries.
Mr. Butler?
So, as far as like the countywide elected officials, I do believe that they have a much bigger job and we do want to find good people, like Frankie has said. They work a lot more hours. For the county board, I look at my position as like a privilege to serve. And I made allowances in my life to take this time to come here and serve. I feel like the perks I get right now are very good. I mean, the hourly wage, is not great, but you get insurance. I'm quite satisfied with what I have here. I would not be in favor of that. I think, there'd been talk in the past that they would increase salaries and reduce county board members. I wouldn't want to see that happen either. So I would be a yes for countywide elected officials like the treasurer and, such, but as far as county board members, and I would not be in favor of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Vicky?
Chair. I appreciate especially what Member Pretzel's saying here, that if we set something in place, we don't have to be the bad guys who are looking to increase things. But we are looking at some numbers that we're really behind. I know that we're very fortunate that we have good people serving. I think that we want to continue in that regard. I feel very proud to serve as well, and I feel like it is a privilege. But there are people who can't take this time away from their work schedule in order to serve if they're not reimbursed in a way that is more consistent with the workplace. So to me, it's a little bit of an equity issue. You shouldn't have to be independently wealthy to be able to serve on the board or to serve in any of these countywide positions. So through that lens, I feel very supportive of whatever we can agree to. Thank you.
Thank you. Micah Freeman?
So, we absolutely could have had this conversation, back in November, but it didn't work out that way. And I think that setting something in place is great. I also know that every, 2 years it can be changed. If the county board can alter anything that they want right before an election occurs, because that's when state statute says we have to set salaries. Am I correct?
I don't have the answer to that.
Mary, is it the state statute says that every 2 years, the county board sets salaries. So if we even set something in place for, projected years in advance, any county board could overturn that.
You cannot bind a future county board. So no, you cannot. And the statute simply indicates that the salaries must be set 180 days in advance of the election, and it must be set by resolution or ordinance. It must also set forth the stipends that each elected official will receive.
And I had another question, but it was I forgot it, so it's irrelevant. I'm sure it will come to me after the fact. I can catch you offline. So basically, if, you know, we can't do anything right now, because it's not 180 days
No,
out.
it just has to be at least 180 days. So it can be done any time before that. It just can't
Right.
be done after that.
So this conversation is for future, you know, year and a half down the road. And I would definitely be in favor. We are so far behind for our countywides and for county board members. And I appreciate and am honored to serve as well. But I also know it does require a lot of time, and there are some jobs where you, if you're not salary and you leave, you don't get paid for the time that you are not there. And it is an equity thing, and I do believe that there's not a soul out there that expects us to do this job for free or for 20,000 a year. So I would be in favor. And these numbers don't look to be huge, as I've always been against any huge change, but I think these numbers look good. Thank you.
Destiny Ortiz.
Thank you, Chair Van Dyne. I just wanted to make a comment on the county board pay salary. I agree with Board Member Pretzel and his comments to say that we are very far behind. I think that 20 years without a pay raise for any person, even if it is elected official, it's just not right. We're setting ourselves back. We're setting ourselves up for failure, and we're not going to be attracting people who, you know, would otherwise be interested in serving these in this position. And I do want to echo Board Member Freeman's sentiments when she says that it is an equity issue. I'm just going to speak from my personal experience, being somebody who is young, who is, you know, the only Hispanic person on this board. My district really sent me here for a purpose, and that is because they wanted this perspective on the board. So I think I would be remiss in not sharing with you all the experience that I have being a young person, trying to afford things just in regular life. Everything is so expensive. Mortgage, your bills, trying to go to school, you know, continue in education, paying for children's things, trying to just survive in this economy. And, you know, every time I come here, I get docked pay from my full-time job. So if I'm getting docked pay and I'm coming here to serve and I'm not being compensated as I should be, it's really not beneficial for me. It's not sustainable for me. I can't do it if I can't feed my kids at the end of the day. So I just want to put that out there. Like Board Member Freeman said, we need to have this increase so that equity can be present on our board, because you know, a lot of the time, the only people who are privileged enough to sit in these seats are people who are well off, people who are older, who have been in their bag for a long time. And I think that it's time that we just start making change so that we can allow other people who aren't, you know, older generation to come here and be able to serve in this capacity and still be able to sustain themselves. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other, Dan? Yes, sir.
So I hear a lot of talk about equity, and I can respect that. You know, some older people,
Don't look at me when you say that.
some older people, their main concern right now is to get ready for retirement. And they may not have a retirement fund. So, and some of those older people may work construction jobs, and when they don't go to work, they don't get paid. But I also feel that when you do work as a public servant, that there's a certain dedication to serving your public that should outweigh any financial gains that could possibly entice others who may not be as committed for the future. So I, for one, don't believe that government officials should make a lot of money. I think their main purpose should override the financial benefit of actually holding that office. So I don't want to come off as some sort of rich snob, because I'm not. I bought this tie 2 years ago. It's the same tie, same shirt. I just feel that the commitment has to outweigh the financial gains. That is what's going to save the system, not higher paying government jobs.
Any last comments?
I just wanted to respond to Member Butler's comment and say, sorry about the old people comment, just kind of slipped.
Not taken.
But I do believe that, the purpose will definitely outweigh the financial gain. I mean, like $30,000 is not gonna, I'm not gonna be out shopping with $30,000. You know what I mean? We're just trying to get it to a place where we can be able to sustain. I don't want to have to choose between livelihood and this job, because I do want to serve the people and I do want to serve my district and provide a voice for my constituents, but I don't want to have to choose between that and not doing it just because I wouldn't be able to survive off of this salary. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, so my ultimate goal here was to have a brief discussion, kind of take the temperature of the executive committee. I would hope that the two leaders could maybe have a further discussion with their caucuses and see where some numbers might be bipartisan. I would like to put this item on the next month's finance agenda for discussion with some numbers. And if we can't come to an agreement in February, maybe we can push it back to March, but it's something that I would like to see taken care of very soon so we can move on and just wait for the next election, almost 2 years out. So with that, we will close out old business and move on to new business. And I believe this is not is this a proclamation? It says a resolution. So I believe,
Yeah, I've got proclamation on this here.
yeah,
It might have been. We don't. No, we do proclamations,
When there is unanimous consent.
which is
Okay.
what we're here for right now, to request that unanimous consent from
Yeah.
the executive committee.
that's right. So the resolution honoring retiring Will County Farm Bureau Manager Mark Schneiderwin. That is the reason why the executive committee is here for this, is to be unanimous if they decide. And there was just a couple bullet points that I would like to mention. Mark Schneiderwin has managed the Will County Farm Bureau for the past 30 years. He's been instrumental and continue to foster strong advocates of agriculture in his time. He raised awareness to the farming industry, strengthening its connection with students by hosting first annual Ag Expo in 1995. The expo has attracted over 1,000 students and still is being held every March. He's helped with 37 pipeline projects, established committees and task force to aid members' needs. He has established recycling and waste collection events and programs. I've had the opportunity to work with Mark for the last 6 years, and I've always had an open conversation with him about the issues with the Farm Bureau. And I think that he's been a fantastic leader for them. And I was hoping for support to give him a proclamation at the full board this month. Mr. Butler.
So I also know him personally, and I've been to many functions at the Farm Bureau. And it's an interesting thing. You never know who is a Democrat or who's a Republican at the Farm Bureau. They all have aligned interests, and they really look at things differently. Mark has done a great job leading it. He works very hard. And Will County is almost half agricultural. It's a big part of who we are. And I think it's a great way to honor the hardworking people, the farmers of Will County, by putting someone like Mark, who's led them for this many years. And we are sad to see him go. There's not really anyone to replace him that could fill his shoes right away, that's for sure. I would definitely support that.
Thank you, Dan. Kelly Hickey?
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry. I'm
That's
going
a,
to make it harder for you.
yeah.
Okay, I will resist the urge to hit the button again. I just want to make sure there's a resolution here and we're saying that it's a proclamation. And then there are resolutions further down in the agenda, but those are resolutions, correct?
This one's just a Scrivener's error.
Okay,
So, yeah.
perfect. All right, I just wanted to sure. Thank you very much.
Micah Freeman?
So as I learned, I think back in November, December, somewhere back then, that a resolution can be a proclamation and there's a fine line there. We did vote to not have proclamations, and I have in the past voted against any resolution that is disguised as a proclamation. And I love Mark as well, and he has had a great impact, but I will have to be a no.
Okay.
Because I'm afraid that if we just keep opening it up, we're just going to, I like Frankie and Frankie may buy a new house. I mean, I don't want to go down a path that could be one-sided or anything else. So I'm just going to stick to my guns. Thank you.
Stick to your guns. There you go. Frankie Pretzel.
Thank you. I hear Member Freeman, and I was among those leading the charge on eliminating proclamations. And the reason for that is I feel like the county board was abusing that opportunity to do something that at one point was viewed by everybody as a positive thing. I would love to recognize Mark for his work, and I may even support this, but my fear is that it's going to turn back into us proclaiming something that we know is controversial. Honoring someone for service should never be controversial, but I'm afraid that if we reopen this door, that it turns into what it's already turned into, people virtue signaling to their constituents that they're the most conservative or liberal person on the board or whatever it is. And all it does is suck the oxygen out of the room. So I'm going to have to think about this one.
Okay. And I think to try to prevent that, both of your concerns is it does have to be unanimous vote at the executive committee. So you may have a little protection there, but I just wanted to remind you of
Just
that.
a quick comment on that.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Mhm.
The problem is then instead of us debating the controversial issue at the full board, we're doing it at executive, right? So it really just, even talking about a controversial proclamation, even if it's not on the agenda yet, but we're bringing it up because it might be, we'll spend an hour and a half arguing about
Well,
it.
there may not be a debate. We might just open up, say, does anybody plan on voting no? And then we can just move on because it has to be unanimous. I would mind stating that right off the bat, saying, I'm going to be a no. No sense bringing it up. Yeah. Go ahead. Wait 1 second, Dan. Go ahead.
If I could just remind everybody just of the debate that occurred during the rules meeting, I think that there was a general discussion that people wanted to keep proclamations or the possibility of proclamations on the table for recognizing retiring county board members, for recognizing long-serving county staffers as well. And this, while not necessarily a county board member, certainly kind of falls within that realm. I think what happened during the rule session then is Member Butler stepped up and said, well, that's all good, but I'd like to make sure that it goes to the executive committee and that it gets a unanimous vote from the executive committee. And so that's where we're at right now. I think as it stands here right now, a proclamation could be for anything, I suppose, but it would all need a unanimous vote by the executive committee. I think if at some point there could be a rule amendment as well, where you look at specifically limiting it to these types of proclamations.
Yes, so I would just like to say that in my entire life, I have never planned on a negative. I always take the most positive outcome that could happen, and that's what I plan for. So when my intent by allowing us to have proclamations was to allow us to do good for those people that have served their community, and not to remove that ability to do that by saying no proclamations, nobody gets nothing now. That's a negative. But a positive is somebody who served their community gets recognized. But who knows, when that happens, other people strive to serve, not that they want to be recognized, but it is a nice perk, and it shows your community that there are people out there doing good for the community. So I just wanted to make it clear that we did not make a rule that we weren't going to have proclamations. It was on unanimous consent. So if, for instance, we voted for this and Micah says no, then we won't do it. So it's simple, but it's not a rule that we don't do them. And that the whole idea was based on the premise that we always plan on a positive and not on a negative.
Thank you, Dan. I'll memorize these numbers before this meeting's over.
Thank you. I hear what Member Butler's saying, but my recollection is that there was, in the previous board, there was a vote where there were no proclamations. And so that's why I was, I think, resistant to changing this in the rules to add, not to dismiss anybody's contribution here, and obviously nothing against Mr. Schneiderwin and all of the fine things that he's done. But I would like to agree with Member Butler, but because I think his heart is absolutely in the right place here. But that's why I was against it in the rule change, because I did not think that it was a great thing. It's kind of a slippery slope. That's what I was thinking. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get a clarification of the rules again?
I think Ms. Tatro is working on that.
I was trying to actually look up the rule because I was thinking that you limited proclamations solely. No, that was not
No,
the case.
there-
All right.
It was
So
a
the-
reorganizational meeting.
It was.
And the rules were changed, and now these are the rules. So what you talked about in the past was the past. The current rule is that there are proclamations allowed with unanimous consent. So what you're saying is we're not changing the rule, we're following the current rule. You're talking about a rule that was in the past. That's already been changed.
And Mary can verify that. And I think Chuck is pretty confident that that's,
We spent some time going over the rules as we were trying to build
Yeah.
the amendments into the rules. And I think the intent here, the original intent was to limit those proclamations to service proclamations, which is I think what Member Ogala was supportive of. I think then what happened is, though, I think Member Butler, you stepped in and said, you know, the motion that was put on the table is let's make this unanimous support from the executive committee. And there was some debate between Ms. Tatro and you as well about the members who are present or what, and that's what was agreed upon at that
Yeah.
point. So
Okay.
so it is unanimous consent, although I think the spirit of the debate at the rule change or at the reorganization meeting was service, that you wanted to honor people's service.
Micah?
I-
Go to-
County Board Member Pretzel just eloquently said what I was trying to say, and I am still afraid that if we keep going down this path, it's going to open up the doors that we were trying to not go down. And the air in the room being sucked out was a perfect example. And I think that it's possible it could happen in this committee as well. I think that service to our county is wonderful. And oh my gosh, Mark has done that. But I just cannot support anything that's going to suck the air out of the room or lead to things that it was not intended to be.
Thank you. Is there any comments that have not been mentioned yet?
I have one.
Frankie, go ahead.
Quick.
Mhm.
So I'm just thinking this through, and I would like to possibly look at amending our rules to say that with unanimous consent at executive committee, we can have a proclamation. However, and Mary's going to have to chime in on this one, no comments allowed. It's literally just a yes, no vote, and then we move on. If we could do that, then I would I would actually welcome this to appear on executive agendas, and we just move on. It's a yes, no vote, no comments allowed. Can we do that?
No comments from the members about whether they agree or
Not
disagree?
why I'm supporting this, not why I'm not, just
So there'd
I'm a
have-
yes, I'm a no, and we move on.
Have to be a detailed autobiography of the individual or just so you could read it, but.
I'm not sure I understand why there would have to be that.
Well, there might be some individuals, excuse me, Dan, hang on 1 second. There may be some individuals that don't know anything about the retiring staff member from the county executive's office or a county board member. So I think it would be helpful for the board, or at least this committee, to read about this individual and why we would consider giving that proclamation.
Well, that would be on our tablet
That's correct.
under the proclamation.
That's correct. But no
You can
debate,
read it,
no debate.
no comments.
Right. All right. Let me go to Katie, hasn't spoke yet. I'm sorry, Ms. Dean Schlattman.
No, it's all right. So, and to Micah and, Member Pretzel's comments, I agree with them. So maybe we go back and amend it to saying that it only pertains to members who have served the county board. What we get specific and saying these proclamations can only be made for somebody retiring or somebody who has done an individual doing, or even if we wanted to do a group, like an individual who specifically, like, I don't know how to make it any more fine tuned, because I understand somebody, like Mark or some other members of the public or just the county board who have served, wanting to recognize them. I understand that, but we can't let it suck the air out of the room. We want to thank them and move on, not make it more than it needs to be. I understand it, so I don't know how we would, if it has to be more fine tuned. I don't know.
All right, for the sake of moving forward, do we have anything new to add? Mr. Butler?
Talk about sucking the air out of the room, okay? This was a rule that was agreed to at the organizational meeting. It's done. I believe in 2 years, there'll be another opportunity to change that rule. Until then, I don't think we change our rules except for at organizational meetings. I might be mistaken. I said, and I would ask that this committee, when they vote on this resolution to have this proclamation, or this proclamation, that they vote on whether the merits of Mr. Schneiderwind, not on what they perceive other rules to be or how it should be. The rules are what the rules are. We're not here to debate the rules. The rules have been set, and we all have to adhere to those rules. So please don't vote on what you think the rules should be. Vote on the actual proclamation that we are putting before the executive committee.
Kelly Hickey?
Thank you. All due respect, we spend a lot of time debating the rules on ad hoc committees earlier. So I do worry about that. The other thing is, I have a question. I do appreciate the fact that I think that we did have our reorganization meeting and changing those rules, even though I think this is a great idea. I think that is I wish you would have thought of that in the reorg meeting, because it would have been fully supported by me. But I just wonder, can we say that there'll be absolutely no discussion about an item? Is that, I don't think that's, sorry. I should have said that while you're still sitting here. I'm sorry.
Mary, you should just move on.
So as it stands, you function according to Robert's rules, and under Robert's rules, you do not generally limit discussion at committees. The whole purpose of committees is that is where the thorough discussion of issues should take place. It even Robert's rules doesn't even allow you to call a question at committee. because the whole point is to have a thorough discussion. That being said, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that the county board can set rules for its own conduct. So if you do choose to amend your rules to limit discussion on that topic, I think that you can probably do that. You would need a 3/5 majority to amend your rules, and I will do further research into that. So, but off the cuff, you can govern yourselves.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Micah?
So, Speaker Van Dyne, I've been very vocal about how I feel.
Mhm.
And I would be willing to maybe alter how I vote on this today. If I could be maybe promised that the amendment, because I know we can amend our rules with a 3/5. If we could have this on an agenda to get it passed, to work on the rules and get them amended in regards to this. It's a proclamation. I mean,
course.
it's not a resolution.
The-
But if we could get it fixed, I think I could be a little bit more easygoing
Mhm.
on how I'm sitting here today. But we have to change something moving forward because we're just gonna keep talking about this issue in our rules.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think my goal is to try to get as much bipartisan support as we can. Our board is 11-11. We really need to buckle down and try to work and negotiate with each other and try to come up with a package that the majority of the board can work with. And individuals have brought up good points, and I would absolutely entertain that. I don't know where it would go, maybe back to executive committee to try to change some of the rules, but we can definitely work on that. Mrs. Freeman. Any other lasting comments before we put this to a vote? Mr. Richmond?
Just sitting back thinking about this is maybe it comes down to it has to be an individual. Let's just say that one of our sheriffs last night did a phenomenal job and saved, 3 kids out of a burning building or something like that. Wouldn't we want to recognize him? So I mean, yes, it's good to have rules that blanket cover everything in that, but I mean, at some point in time, there are individuals that cross our paths as a county that we would like to recognize. In this case here, I think Mark's done a phenomenal job. I would have to, I'm betting, not my house, but I'm betting quite a bit of money that everybody be happy with this, with Mark getting this. So how do we acknowledge this before he moves on to another portion of his life? I'd hate to have this just, die on the vine today and no recognition for Mark. And I agree, Joe, you brought up a great point. Maybe we, let's just say use my name, Jim Richmond. Katie, you don't like me, just say no. And that stops all conversation because we've just wasted probably about 25 minutes of time that we could have been more productive. But if we could figure out a way to maybe narrow the focus to an individual specific to a county activity, and then have it just come before us, Jim Richmond, Katie says no, end of discussion, we move on. Let's move on to number 4 or whatever it is next. So I think if maybe as leaders, we could come up with something like that, package it up. Mary, you get it, help us get it approved. That'd be great. I would love to see though us at least agree for this one for Mark that we, can move this through. I don't know. Is there a way to package that up today and, let's get past this one? So,
Well,
thanks.
you have my commitment to work with both leaders to try to come up with something to where this committee would be satisfied and the board. So,
Don't touch it. Coming to me. So I do want to vote for this. I want to recognize Mark.
Yes.
And I love what you said. In a bubble, it's going to always be perfect. But if 6 months from now, I decide I want to recognize John Smith, who started Machine Gun Owners Society for America, and I think it's a great idea that he's retiring, we should recognize him. It's going to turn into this huge debate, even though machine gun owners, I have a place in my heart, right?
Yeah.
So that's the problem. You know, Moms for America was one, Pride organization, Black Lives Matter. You all know the ones. And somebody's going to say that we should acknowledge this person for their service for that organization. No matter what we do, you can't say that we only recognize people who gave us service. And I want to recognize the police officer who saved 3 lives last night. And we all probably do. Same with Mark. But I just don't see a scenario where it doesn't turn into, in the political environment we all live in, it's going to turn into, I want to recognize this person for this wonderful service that half the board thinks is a terrible service.
I respect that opinion.
So I'll vote for Mark on this agenda today. If I can just get the chairman of our board to say that we will look at amending the rules to my suggestion of, we'll vote on it in an executive, but no comments are allowed.
Yeah, you have my commitment for that suggestion.
Reasonable. Yeah.
2 commitments. And then this is going to be the last comment on this issue today. Sherry Williams.
Yes, I think that we should abide by the rules that we have set. I also think that the problem is not the rule. The problem is the board. And so if we could get it together, we would never have this issue. So we just have to decide that we're not gonna do that. I mean, it's a simple thing to me, because I don't really talk at meetings a lot by choice. Just shut up. So I mean, it's easy enough. So if we as a board want to do something, we are able to do it. And as leadership, I am more than happy to talk with other members of leadership and do what we have to do. But ultimately, it is up to us as a board to do what we need to do and not sit around bickering.
Right. Thank you. Roll call, Sandy, please.
Richmond,
Yes.
Dean Schlattman.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Butler. My page bigger. Butler, okay. Freeman,
Yes.
Hickey,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
Newquist. Oh, should I hear? Ortiz? Yes. Pretzel,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Van Dyne.
Yes,
It was unanimous.
it was unanimous. All right. Congratulations.
Future discussion.
Okay, now, where are we at? Okay, new business still. I would like Chuck Pelkey to jump in on this for a couple of these items and do some explanation, please.
So the next 3 items are really, they were added onto the agenda after it was posted. They were late arrivals on it. They're routine intergovernmental agreements. I consulted with the state's attorney's office. I consulted with the state's attorney's office, and she said that at this point here, we really can't debate those. They're not up for debate or discussion, but we just want to, I mean, they would be up for debate or discussion. We'll hold places for these on the county board agenda next week. So am I correct in that, Mary? Okay. So we'll save space for these 3 items. We really can't debate them, and we can't take a vote on these 2 items. We have a 4th item as well in a similar situation that was on this agenda originally. We're having a little trouble with the dated software that we're using right now. It was originally on the agenda, and when we added these items here, it somehow disappeared. So that's an intergovernmental agreement with the Bolingbrook or the Fountaindale Library between the county clerk's office and the library district to hold a Dropbox there. That is something that we would hold a space for as well. And if the board wanted to, they could debate that matter up at the county board meeting. Am I correct on that as well, Mary? So thank you.
Are those items 2, 3, and 4 under new business?
2, 3, and 4,
Okay.
and then we'll hold another space for the Fountaindale Library District.
Can we make that motion now, Mary? Okay, thank you. All right, so no debate. Moving on, we're gonna go to committee reports. This is kind of a hybrid executive committee with only one per month. So if you feel the need to review anything importance on your committee, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, make a brief comment and we can move on. So I'll start with Public Works and Transportation. Chair Trenier is unavailable, and I believe Vice Chair Revis is unavailable. So any member from the Public Works and Transportation Committee wishing to give a brief update sitting here? I was in attendance. Ms. Hickey, do you, go ahead. Do you, sorry to spring it on you, but
Yeah, no, I'm,
go ahead.
okay, I'm sorry. I'm really not prepared to do that. But I appreciate that and we'll come prepared in the future just in case we have the chair, the vice chair and everyone else out. So I'll probably be your last choice, but I will be happy to fulfill that role going forward.
Sure.
It was pretty smooth sailing in old business. Mr. Ronaldson talked about Route 53, Manhattan Arsenal Road intersection, the accidents, IDOT agreements. There was a lot of discussion back and forth about that. Mr. Ballard had questions about 143rd Street and pending hearing, and they had a couple back and forth about that, but all the resolutions seemed to pass pretty smoothly, and I'm thinking they all were unanimous. So that's all I have from my wonderful note taking.
Okay, thank you. Capital improvements,
Sorry, I turned me off.
Micah Freeman, Chair Freeman.
We had a wonderful update from our a gentleman that came to talk to us with a slide presentation. It's online for the agenda. Encourage you to look at it, but no resolutions to bring forward.
All right, moving, any questions on that? No. Finance, we unfortunately, we do not have our chair or vice chair either. I believe there's some sickness or something going on, in attendance, but does anyone want to jump in on finance? I believe everything was unanimous out of committee. So. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right. Legislative, Chair Ortiz.
Thank you so much, Chair Van Dyne. I just wanted to say that we had our legislative meeting this past Tuesday with federal and state lobbyists who were able to dial into the meeting and give us updates on legislation in the General Assembly. The lobbyists advised us to work with them as soon as possible to receive help with drafting language for resolutions to be presented for NACO and ISACO. We are already in the works of putting together language for 2 resolutions for NACO. So I encourage all those interested in supporting or opposing any specific legislation to reach out to me and Vice Chair Ogala so that we can help with drafting language for potential resolutions that will benefit the county moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Butler, Public Health and Safety, Chair Butler. Hit your button there, sir.
I'll just get my feet wet over there. It was a good meeting. I believe that the committee had requested a field trip, so we're trying to plan one. So I think Elizabeth and Perla and staff are trying to get something organized. So hopefully next month will be an exciting month. We'll be able to learn something new. And other than that, I think that also Chuck, I had asked to add to our agenda list some information about the Congressional Oversight Committee's review on the handling of COVID, because some people were interested on that. So we got that out too. So if anybody's interested, they can look. I believe it's a 500-page report, but a 2-page summary up front for the most of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Land Use and Development, Chair Pretzel.
All right, we had a doozy this month. So be ready for a long one on next Thursday. I expect a lot of people from the public to come. A lot of other municipalities are going to be sending representatives. I don't think hardly anything was unanimous. So the big one is going to be this quarry out in Bolingbrook. We're going to vote on 4 different things, the map amendment and then 3 special use permits. There's lots of emails. I'm sure you're all getting the emails and the phone calls from the attorneys and mayors and everything. So be ready for that one. We had 2 for a truck terminal in Wilmington. That actually was unanimous, no problem. Then we had this party events facility that they're looking to put in New Lenox. The village of New Lenox is objecting, but it's otherwise, it seems like a pretty good project. That was 4-1. So be ready for that one. We then had the special use permit in Frankfurt for one of those elderly homes where they offer sort of assisted living, but it's in a residential community. This is the second one that's come across our agenda in both in Frankfurt Square. So I think we're going to see more of these. We be ready for that one. That was 3-2. Then we had a couple of solar projects. Vote how you want on those. And then overturning a decision. Oh, that was back to the quarry. So there's another vote for the quarry, overturning a decision from planning and zoning. So that's it. Be ready.
So
Be on it.
absolutely nothing on the consent agenda.
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
Never.
Okay.
Lunch.
Next, we have Chairwoman Dean Schlattman.
So we have not met
Link.
yet this month and we will not be meeting this month. We're going to meet with leadership. I'm going to meet with leadership and kind of go over what we think will be going next moving forward. And but don't worry, we will have plenty of meetings and plenty to talk about going forward after this month. So
Thank you. Executive committee, we just went through that, like Judy used to like to say, so no reason to hash any of that. Appointments by the county executive. Appointment to the county mental health board of Will County. Is there a motion? Motion Freeman. Second Williams, discussion? Do we have a clean roll?
Yes,
Okay,
our last
is there a previous roll? Previous Richmond,
Second president.
thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion will carry. Approving county executive appointment to the Board of Health of Will County. Is there a motion?
Motion Freeman.
Thank you.
Second Hickey.
Previous Williams.
Second Logan.
Any discussion on that item? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving.
Motion to save space for those 3 items.
At the end, I believe. I want to open it up to public comment first. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none? No announcements or reports by chair that I can remember at this time. I know everyone's going to be extremely happy. We do have a need for executive session. Thank you, to discuss pending litigation. So can I have a motion?
Motion Freeman.
Second Hickey.
Second Hickey, roll call, please.
Richmond,
Yes.
Butler. Dean Schlattman,
yes.
Mike Freeman,
Yes.
Hickey,
Yes.
Logan,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Pretzel,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Dunn.
Yes.
Motion.
All right, we are now in executive session. 9-1, motion carries. Looking for a motion to approve the county board agenda with saving the items. The 4 items, can you go ahead and read them off?
Yeah, so it's item number 2 under new business, authorizing the county executive to execute an intergovernmental grant agreement with the Illinois Emergency Management Agency and Office of Homeland Security. Item number 3 under new business, authorizing the county executive to execute an intergovernmental grant agreement with the Illinois Emergency Management Agency and Office of Homeland Security. Item 4 under new business, declaring vehicles as surplus and authorizing disposal. And then there is another item that originally appeared on the agenda, but fell off the agenda when we made these changes. And that is the intergovernmental agreement between Will County and the Will County Clerk's Office and the Fountaindale Library District to place a drop box at their location during elections.
Okay, is there a motion to approve that agenda?
Motion Dean Schlot.
I'm sorry. To, okay, I'm sorry. All right, motion to approve the amendment.
Motion Dean Schlot.
Second Hickey.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion will carry. Now can we have a motion to approve the county board agenda as amended?
Motion Freeman.
Second Hickey.
Second Hickey, any discussion? Is there a previous roll? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Very good. Next scheduled meeting is February 13th, 2025. Need a motion to adjourn? All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? That motion carries. We are closed, adjourned.